What's up, people? I'm Shaggy, the opinionated and really cold hippie, here with continuing my deep dive into the Neil Young catalog. Today I'm talking about Disc 8 in the Archives Volume 2, his ridiculously amazing box set of archive material, some of which has been released, some of which has been not. Disc 8 is what is now called Dume, D-U-M-E. Guess Zuma meets the Dunes. I'm not really sure where the name comes from, but it has been released on LP. It was released as a 2 LP set, so essentially it's a single CD, but essentially kind of a double album, and it's sort of an alternative timeline in which Zuma becomes Dume, becomes this album. It contains every song off Zoom except for the off Zuma, except for the closing one, which is Through My Sails. That is not on here. Every other song is on here in the exact same version it appears on Zuma. So you get all of Zuma in this. Plus you get some unreleased stuff up to the point of this release. Plus you get some stuff that would later be released, re-recorded, redone, and would appear on other albums as late as Freedom. We have a Freedom track that appears on here, though it would be redone a little bit for Freedom. But it's an amazing listen. And I think for me, the most fascinating part of this is the sequencing of the songs. After this was released and after the first one was released, all of these discs, they have titles. This one's called Dume, right? Have been generally just become albums of their own, and people, there's a lot of discussions online and among friends I have about, what would you prefer, Dume or Zuma? Which is the better of the two albums? And you really can't compare them because Zuma is a crafted album in which songs have been selected and sequenced and all that stuff. And as fantastic as this disc is, this one right here, the songs appear in the order in which they were recorded. So you could title this Summer 75, Neil in Crazy Horses, Summer 75, because everything in here was recorded through the end of May, which if you go to school in Texas, that's when your summer starts, through September of 75. There are a couple tracks that the recording was started prior to that, but then finished in this run in these months. And their sequence, those songs, I think there's only maybe two, Part in My Heart, maybe one more. Those are sequenced in this track. So even though it might have the recording started in earlier 75 or in 74, the sequencing is where it was completed in 75. So it's not really an album proper. Nobody sat down and thought, oh, this song should go first, this song should go second. So there's that. And then secondly, Cortez the Killer is the second song, which I remember when I got this thinking, well, that's just going to shade the album a completely different color of awesome. Because Cortez the Killer is sort of as the penultimate song on Zuma, I think was just a master stroke. It's easily one of Neil's best songs, if not his best song. It's a perfect creation. He has other perfect creations, so that's why it might not be my favorite. I'm not saying it isn't. But Cortez the Killer is one of the all-time great Neil Young songs. So to have it come second was just like, does that just undercut everything else that follows, right? Does that hurt the sequencing? It doesn't. It absolutely doesn't. It just makes your jaw drop and then you move on and experience other aspects of Neil. But this is a really good listen. If you're into vinyl, it's worth buying on vinyl. Even if you already have Zuma, I think the sound is fantastic on this. The new stuff is just a great listen. It's neat to hear these things in a different order. As often as I've listened to Zuma, just listening to these things with a different sequence alone makes the experience for a hardcore Neil Young fan really worthwhile. What do you get on here? You get the opening Ride My Llama, a crazy horse, full-on rocker, clunky stomper. You get hand claps. That part about took out something, and that weird little trippy lyrical part gets this really woozy electric psych kind of trippy crazy horse type of atmosphere. It's all over the map musically. Like almost each little block of lyrics gets its own little musical section. So it goes from like big clunky stomper to hazy psyche rocker to like some weird awesome. I mean, it's an absolutely awesome version of Ride My Llama. If you thought Ride My Llama was like this, maybe one of the throwaway songs on Rust Never Sleeps, and you're just like, oh, it's a cute little song. It's got some pretty cool lyrics. This version is the bomb. Like, this Ride My Llama almost makes the entire disc worthwhile just for this. And the fact that it's the first song, that it opens up the festivities, it's just, you're winning from the get-go. Cortez the Killer is next. And it works perfectly. There is so much weirdness in Ride My Llama, and there's just so much, like Neil Young version of weirdness, so many great effective ideas in that 3 minutes and like 45 seconds that Ride My Llama is, that when we get to Cortez, you're ready to just like go on this epic journey across the Atlantic and through the past, and mix it with weird references to possibly the present and women who are living there, all of whom are beautiful, by the way. It's a really good combination of songs, and Cortez, it hits equally as hard. Like, I like it's the sequencing on Zuma, it coming near the end, and I thought this would just almost be like too soon, and the rest of the album would be like, okay, what am I looking forward to? There's still a lot of fantastic stuff, but it works really good as a second song. Pairs really well with Ride My Llama. Don't Cry No Tears follows. That also somehow works. Sounds even more confident following Cortez than it does opening the album. I also, for some reason, listening to this recently, this past week, I'm picking up some big Star vibes during the verses, like the guitar parts in the back. I'm almost feeling like that could have been something on their second album. Like that's kind of there's a big Star little vibe in here, particularly the stuff they did on their second album. So incredible start. And it sounds amazing. Fantastic. It is interesting as we go through here, all of the Zuma songs are paired, so none of them appear alone. The things that we already know from Zuma, they're either with one or two other songs, and then intermixed are things that have not been released before, or early versions of songs that have been released. So after Don't Cry No Tears, we get an unreleased song called Born to Run. Flirts with some Gimme Some Lovin' in the very opening notes, has an almost like do 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 do, but then it goes off into a different riff. Kind of just like a really fuzzy rocker, some really good guitar energy. I think it's the decision not to put this on Zuma. These are essentially the Zuma sessions. Was a good choice. I don't think it's as strong as the weaker tracks on there, which are Stupid Girl and Drive Back for me. I don't think it even lives up to those two. But in this context, on this album, I think it works. Ride My Llama possibly could have put on Zuma, though, and that would have worked. Because that thing's a killer. Kind of makes the whole disc worthwhile, honestly, just that Ride My Llama. After Born to Run, we get a trio of Zuma songs in the form that we know them. Barstool Blues, which works great coming out of Born to Run, goes into Danger Bird. That combination works well. Sort of the drunken swagger of Barstool going into the free floating, almost drunken haziness of Danger Bird. That's a really good pairing. And then that goes into Stupid Girl, and the slower intro of Stupid Girl before we get into that more like the verse and the chorus and that sort of crazy horse kind of slow rocking energy. That slow kind of intro works really well coming out of Danger Bird. Like, yes, these were not sequence perfect, specifically, yes, this is just how they recorded them, but they recorded them in a really good order and works really well. After that, we get Kansas. Kansas appeared on Homegrown and was this simple, warm, acoustic little number fit perfectly on Homegrown. This is a really nice country rocker with some nice little rock flexes between the verses. Whole different version of the song. Kind of good. I think it's better than Born to Run. I think it's a pretty good track. I might have picked this over Stupid Girl, honestly, to be on Zuma. I like this. I think this is a good version of this. The version, the sort of acoustic warm version on Homegrown works well, but this works really well too. After that, we get what is, I think, undoubtedly one of the treats on here. I don't think it's as good as the one we know, the one that would eventually get released. But we get a nice, stretched out, slightly slower, slightly less urgent, slightly looser version of Powderfinger. That it just works. Neil plays some like solo guitar licks early on before he goes into that bow, and then the whole band comes in and we're off into a much less urgent version of Powderfinger. Like, I don't feel like Neil Young's life is at stake immediately as I do in the Rust Never Sleeps version of this song. It's just a somewhat of a different approach. It has yet to really be tightened up and honed over playing in front of live audiences. But it's a fascinating listen. A little more dynamic, a little more loose with the guitar solo energy. I'm really happy this version has been released. And it works really well on this like sort of double LP version of Zuma. Does not compare to the original. The original really is maybe another Neil Young, the original that we know, the Rust Never Sleeps version. It is another perfect creation, but this one is really interesting. Then we get an unreleased song called Hawaii, which would eventually be released on Hitchhiker. This is kind of a jagged country rock stomper. Some great guitar energy in here, kind of a fun song. Yeah, just good energy. Works really well after Powderfinger. Then we get another trio of Zuma songs. Drive Back, Looking for a Love, fantastic lyrics in that. Part of My Heart. I think Part of My Heart works better on Zuma following Danger Bird, but here it's just kind of maybe lost in the mix of like lighter countryer type songs. Hawaii, Drive Back, which is a little more rock energy, Looking for Love, a little country, Part of My Heart. I think it worked better on the original, but it's a really good song. Then we get Too Far Gone. This is guitar and mandolin. Really awesome song. It's just Neil and Frank, really acoustic version of this. Absolutely fantastic. Yeah, great listen. Really cool. Yeah, glad this is on here. It would be the penultimate song when it would appear on Freedom right before Rockin'. In the Free World, the electric version. Then we get a full band version of Pocahontas. Really nice sway to it. Kind of a 70s groove to it. Interesting little guitar solo. Can't compare to the original. I think the original is just absolutely perfect. Neil and an acoustic guitar, that's pretty much all you need for this song. But this one, it's a crazy horse guitar vibe Pocahontas. Like Powderfinger, it does not beat the original, but I'm really happy it's out there. It's a good listen. If I had to choose in a world in which either, if I had to get rid of Rust Never Sleeps or Zuma in order to have Dume in the world, I would probably get rid of Dume. Like, I'm okay with this not existing if I have to sacrifice either Zuma or Rust Never Sleeps, but I don't have to do that. And we can have all of those things. We can have lots of nice things. And so I'm going to take this. This is a good listen. And then it closes out with a nice, intimate piano and voice, No One Seems to Know. The piano in the beginning of this kind of reminds me of like Elton John, early 70s, like a Madman Across the Water vibe, or like a darker number on Tumbleweed Connection. Really nice piano. And then once Neil starts singing it, sounds like a Neil song. But I like the vibe on this. It's a good closer. The intimacy of it works really, really well. But yeah, 16 songs. Everything from Zuma except Through My Sails. Some really fascinating listens. I think the sequencing is fascinating. I think listening to these songs in a different order reveals different facets of the songs that make them even better than they already were. It's out on vinyl. It's part of an absolutely amazing box set. Like this box set, Archives 2, has Tuscaloosa, that live set, has the Roxy Tonight's the Night live set. It has the Old Homestead. It has Homegrown. I've already talked about all those things. I have videos on those. If you're looking for reasons to invest in Archives 2, it's worth the investment. But yeah, that's all I got. Yeah, so we're here in 75. We're still here. We're going to be getting into the latter half of the 70s pretty soon in this deep dive. And then at some point in time, we'll go back and fill in all these other spots. But yeah, it's a great, fantastic release. I highly recommend you check it out. All right, subscribe, share, thoughts, like, whatever, all that stuff. Go, you know how those things work. Share this, tell a friend, and go listen to this if you haven't. It's a good hang. Ride My Llama Alone, the opening track. Check that out if you haven't. It's amazing. That's all I got. Peace. Talk to you later.